Okay, welcome back. For our final video, we are going to produce our bump and our specular map for our building. And this is not going to take too much time. We're going to actually use our pre-existing texture for our house, for our color, or it's also called a diffuse map. You'll notice in the project write-up sheet that's called diffuse. But you can use color or diffuse. I'm not going to call you out on either of those. Those are interchangeable terminology. So what we're going to do here is use this right here and go to File, Save As. And this is now going to be called my... Yeah, this would be, again, this can be color or diffuse. I'm going to make that a PNG. Yeah, you know me. And I'm going to save that. And now that I have that, I am going to hit OK. And I'm going to fire up a website that we have gone to before. Normal Map Online. So the Normal Map Online is how we're going to be able to generate our specular and how we'll be able to generate our bump maps. So I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to drag in my color that I just produced here. So let me find that in a second here. Just got to get to that. That is under... Okay. And building texture and images. Okay. So let me just make sure. That was a different project there. Okay, File, Save As, onto my computer, PNG. Okay, that should be spring 2020. Okay, source images. So that should be under images now, because that's the place that we need to keep this. So now that this is here, I'm going to go into that website. I'm going to left click and drag that color map into my Normal Map Online. So this is generating not a normal map. I don't want one of these things. And I'm getting a lot of false information here because it's also giving me a displacement map, which you'll notice displacement maps actually push your textures beyond the boundaries of your texture sheet. That's not how games would be using that for most cases. I have this going on here. If I go into my ambient occlusion, that's actually kind of a nice way that we can start to base our bump map off of this. So I'm going to hit download on that. But before I do, I'm actually going to increase the strength of it a little bit more. Kind of want to get some more depth on it. So I'm going to play around with these settings. Maybe not the strength, but the range. Okay, let's try that one. And you'll notice cube. Let's try plane because I could see this better. I only want my ambient occlusion on here so I can look at that. And so I have that. What would my specular be right now? See, we can't really use that for specular because I want my windows to be more shiny than everything else, and it's not really going to do that for me. So we're going to fake that in another way. So I'm going to go ahead and just download my ambient occlusion that I have, and I'm going to save it. So I'm going to hit download. And now, making sure I put that back into where I've been working. So that was under my source images folder. Now that I have that, I can just left click and drag that in. So I'm going to make sure that I can have these side by side and just left click and drag. So there's that. And I can also just left click and drag it into my Photoshop file. Okay, so I have my ambient occlusion map, which actually for now can be sitting inside of my the ambient occlusion map I generated. So let me turn that off. the one that we used for our house earlier on, and my grunge and all that. That can go under house color now. So I'm just gonna actually drag these into house color. And my cat is scratching something. I'm sure you're hearing fireworks right now. Okay. Now that I have that, let me turn that off. Here is my house occlusion map. This is what I'm going to use to generate a bump map. So I'm going to take this ambient occlusion map and I'm going to go into adjustments, brightness, contrast. I'm going to make sure that I hold down the Alt key to go in between those two layers. So now it's only going to affect this ambient occlusion map. Now I'm going to increase brightness and increase my contrast. So I'm trying to find a happy medium here. Let's say maybe around here is something good. So now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and File, Save As, and PNG. And this time, for my, I'm going to make sure it goes to images again. I'm going to go to Building, BUMP, save. And now that I have that, let's load that into Maya. So under my house, if I go into the Hypershade, and I were to click on that, which is already loaded over here, I need to go down to something where I find bump or normal map. If I click on this right here, load in that file, and click on that little arrow so we get to the image name. Let that fire up for a second here. All right, so now I didn't set my project, which is a no-no. I need to find it. So my computer, and under Spring 2020, there we go, and there we go, and under Building, and under Images, I have my bump. I'm going to hit Open. Okay, now let's see what this did. It did terrible. First off, that looks like a wet house. Second off, woof. It looks like possibly there was a visit in the middle of the night with the car with tires squealing. That's not very happy looking. So what the bump map is doing for me, yes, it's giving me bump, but it's also kind of doing it in a way that it's not like a human thought about it. A computer did this very clearly. So we can fix that up very easily by thinking about depth for our texture. So if I look at this, it's already kind of doing that for me. Some of these areas are brighter than other areas. One of the smartest things that you could do before you generate your house color to generate the to generate your bump is to turn off the grunge, because those gunshot holes along the side were a little too intense. So if we were to save that again, and images, and remember, this takes time to experiment. Just following this once and then just saying, yeah, that's done because I did it, that's not being an artist. That's being someone who's lazily submitting stuff and just trying to get by. Make sure that you are looking at your objects when they're in 3D, making sure that they actually look like something that you would be proud to submit. You don't want to just kind of just push through here. So, all right, let's say I think I just saved that one over my ambient occlusion for now, which is okay. I'm going to use that again, and I'm going to actually drop my range down this time. So I'm going to lower that. And I'm also going to get the mean. I want it to be on the positive, not the negative, because you notice when you flip that, the whites turn the other direction. I want it to be kind of low. Okay, let's try that one. And save my ambient occlusion. So download it. Bring it back into Photoshop. So let me make sure that I can do that here. So do that. I'm dragging it over onto another screen. You can't see it. Don't worry. All right, there's that. So I'm just going to compare and contrast the one I had versus this newer one. That might be a little bit better to work with. Let's see what this one did now. All right, let's file, save as, save on your computer, PNG, ambient occlusion map, yes. And then now we are going to see what this did for us. So if we go back to Maya. Okay, now let's make sure that this reloaded. It should have, but again, I don't trust computers. Okay, I saved over the wrong one. That's because I'm tired and my kids are screaming upstairs, so concentration is at a all-time low. Let's save this again. And okay, source images, PNG. That's actually going to be under my images folder, and that is now my bump. So let's save that. All right, so that did change something. And what it changed, did it make it better? No. So what we need to do is start messing around with some sliders here. So in the bump map, I have it set up at a 1 for my depth. Let's just knock that down. So 0.32. I have some bump on it, but it's not to a point where the bumps are just going super crazy. It's just a subtle amount of that bumpiness on there, which I think actually is a lot easier to work with. Now, there's better ways that we could do this too. And it's all about thinking about this in grayscale. So I'm actually catching light on this. That's good. But in grayscale, if we were to look at this, and what I'm going to do is turn that back one on and start looking at areas that I know are a little bit blown out. Right here, this is blown out. And it's because it's actually rock there, but when the normal map or the bump map went on there, it doesn't know that it exists because it went too deep. So some spots are nicer than others on this. Another thing that we could do with this is to take this whole color, duplicate it, and merge it down. So now it's just this. And what I'm going to do is image, adjustments, and I'm going to do a desaturate. So now it's black and white. Now, I'm going to move this up. So I want this to be underneath this brightness contrast and linked with that. Okay. So with that, I'm going to increase the brightness a lot. And I'm actually going to drop that contrast. So now they have something like this. Let's see if this one works better. Why am I showing you different variations of these things? Well, sometimes one works better than the other one. That's kind of an obvious thing. But it's really, there's different tools that are available for you. And using a combination of these things as best as you can, that's the best way to go. So let's go back to Maya and see what that did for me. So now I don't have those. Oh, look at that. That's a lot better just by going with that. Things aren't blown out. It's catching the lighting on that. Let's increase my depth. Hey, welcome to hell. I guess that's probably still Not good. So we're gonna drop that down at depth, right? Yes, you should drop that down. Okay, so that's actually really nice. That we're gonna go subtle with it. So a little bit goes a long way. I'm gonna keep that. Now, last thing to do, we have specular that we should add. Everything looks wet, so let's fix what should be wet and what shouldn't be. So we're gonna go and work with that same file. So in Photoshop, I have these files, and I'm gonna actually take all this, and I'm gonna get rid of those two because I don't need those. I'm gonna grab these two, group them, and we're gonna call that bump. So B-U-M-P, not boomo, but bump. Okay, and now I'm gonna duplicate it. So what this is gonna do for me is I'm going to use this to define what should be shiny and what shouldn't be. What should be shiny? Well, roof isn't really shiny. Siding is shiny. So what we're going to do here is think about what needs to have some shine to it. We'll use those pieces, and then everything else we'll make not so shiny anymore. So first thing I want to do, I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to make a new layer. And I'm going to just basically go across this whole window. And I'm going to make sure that I get this cropping out certain pieces. So I'm using the Marquee Selection and Negative Selection now to get rid of certain areas. And now that I have this, I'm just going to fill this. So I'm going to fill this with white. So edit, fill. And now we are going to hold down the V key and arrow key right. And now we're going to hold down shift and arrow key. So we made a duplicate. And now we're moving that over into position. And then we're going to do that again. So Alt, arrow key, and move that over. I think it's World War III upstairs with my children. 98% sure you guys can hear one of my children doing something horrifying. Okay, so I've duplicated these things over, and now they are ready to use for window gloss. Now I need to put that over on here too. So what I'm going to end up doing is just taking this, duplicating it. So right click, duplicate. V key, move this over. And it's not going to match up 100%, but I am okay with that because what I'm going to end up doing... Let's see. So it's because I scaled these that it's not lining up, but that's okay. I'm going to just delete those. And I am now going to Control T and hold down Shift and drag left to scale that up. And I'm going to just do that over here too. And now I've got my specular for this window, which is the same size as the other ones in the front. So holding down Alt and arrow key over, now Shift and arrow key over and slide that into position. All right, it's pretty good. And then Alt, arrow key over, and there's this one. Okay, so we're going to combine all those. Right click, merge down, or merge layers, and now these are shinies that Crow in Dark Souls would love, the shinies. Okay, so now that I have this, what's the next step? Okay, so my next step is just to reduce the contrast on this piece right here. So this house, the brightness needs to be knocked down because it really shouldn't be that shiny. Everything should be a lot darker. Now, we're running into some issues here. The issue is that everything that was white for the house is also being shiny too. So a couple different ways that we could deal with that. The fastest way that I'm going to do this is just to create a marquee selection and drag across the areas that I know are way too bright. So same thing what we did with our windows. Is this fun? No, but we have to do it. So I'm going to give this like a gray color and Shift F5, hit enter. Okay, I know it's covering that, so I'm going to hold down Alt and drag and hold down Shift to go to this next area. I'm going to hit Control T and drag it over to here. And hold down V and left click drag over to here. And then now, am I doing that on the wrong? Okay, let me back this up. I was doing that on that layer. I need to do it above it. So Shift F5, fill it, and left click while holding down Alt to duplicate, and Control T, drag that over, grab that and hit hold down Alt, left click to drag and duplicate, and move that over, Control T, enter. All right, now that I have that, I'm going to do that again. Alt, drag, Control T, rotate it, shrink it down. We're going to go over to here, hold down Shift and drag, Shift and drag to here. And I'm going to Alt, left click, drag that one over to that side too. And I'm going to keep doing this, so I'm going to cover up all these white areas, so bear with me. In a second you'll see all that done. Okay, so I have all of my areas that were the bright white wood covered up by just selecting those and filling that by Shift F5, and it's a gray color, so you can see that right here. I put those all over the tops of these. Now if I go to normal and do that as a multiply, and I just knock that back a little bit, go around here. I also have my shiny layer on top, and that's looking pretty good. I'm now going to do a file, save as, we're going to do a PNG, and this is going to be under my images again. So I now have my color, I have my bump, and now this is my spec. So specular. Save that, and now everything is ready to go for me to be able to submit this, except for the fact that this needs to be called spec. So spec, bump, house, UVs, that's very good. Okay, I'll save this. And then last but not least, let's just link this in and we are all done. So, okay, I see there's something weird going on here. Let's link that in and we will be all done for this video. Let's see, I've got my color PSD. Okay, so we have to change this one out. So what I'm going to go is into here, and we're going to go under our images, and we're going to select our color. Hit open. So now that's back to where it needs to be. We have our bump, and that is sourcing under images and bump. Excellent. Last but not least, let's go to our specular color. Go to File. Let's load the spec. Open. All right, let's look what that did. Okay, notice when I move the camera, see the shiny on the window. I can see that on the windows on all those. So that's exactly what we were going for. Subtle bit of that going on. If I go to my lights and I add a create light, and I were to add maybe an ambient light on here. It's not even reacting. Let's go to create light and point light. Okay, so now if I move this point light around, there we go. Notice much shinier over here. Something's happening to one of my children. And that's it. So that's good. Now, what do we need to submit? All we need to be able to submit We'll save this. And we will make sure it's our name. So not building unwrap, but that'd be my name. And then file, archive. And that is it for this project.